The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans. It is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. The Ride Home Rants podcast wants to thank you for listening and let everybody know that we do offer monthly subscriptions to help support the show in other ways other than listening and downloading each episode. What you will get with each subscription is you will get bonus episodes that aren't released to everybody. You will also have a chance to ask me anything each and every month where I will put out a special episode just to answer your questions. You will also get more exclusive content that is not released to everybody. To subscribe to the show, go and click on the link in the description of this episode, and I look forward to your added support and to help us keep this show going. The Ride Home Rants podcast is also brought to you by Buddy's Beard Care. Buddy's Beard Care provides premium men's grooming products at an affordable price. Products are made in Ohio, and Buddy's Beard Care supports local. The majority of our supplies are from other Ohio-based companies. You can find them on social media at Buddy's Beard Care or online at buddysbeardcare.com. Use the promo code BONO15 and he will save you 15%. I've been using these products for a little over 6 months now, and my beard has never felt healthier. It has never grown faster, and according to my wife, it has never felt softer. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by former guest of the show in Matt Landowski in Sweet Hands Sports. Elevate their game with Sweet Hands Sports. Our sports gloves are designed for champions, providing ultimate grip and durability. Achieve greatness with every match. Choose Sweet Hands Sports for the winning edge. Grip your victory at sweethandsports.com. Use the promo code BONO10 and he will save you 10%. He has sent me a complimentary pair of golf gloves. They are so comfortable, durable, and breathable. You won't find a better pair of gloves out there. Again, sweethandsports.com, promo code BONO10. Lastly, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Deemed Fit, a clothing company from first responders for first responders. These products are so comfortable. They look great. They have great messages on them. They are provided to support first responders, especially those who worked through COVID. All of the proceeds are going to helping veterans and first responders with their mental and physical health. This is a great cause. I support anything that has to do with our first responders and our veterans. Again, deemedfit.co, promo code Mike Bono will save you 20%. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. This is a very special episode for me. This is actually the 4-year anniversary show of the Ride Home Rants podcast, and it is hard to believe that it's been 4 years since I started this show, and we're going to talk all things about the show. And with me today, as always, everybody knows and loves this man, and he is the wonderful manager of the podcast, Johnny Fiddy Falconi, is going to sit here and he's going to help me talk all through the show, basically how it got started, how we got Johnny involved, and we're going to break down a couple of our favorite episodes and everything like that. So, Fiddy, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, man, a lot of great information we're going to talk about today. Kind of reflect back on the 4 years you've had the show and the little less than 4 years I've been on, and going into season 5, and gonna kind of just give all the viewers, a little behind the scenes thing of how we truly work here at Ride Home Rants, not only releasing the shows, but what we're doing in the meantime behind the scenes.
Yeah, a lot of people don't see what happens. They hear the show when it comes out on Wednesdays and, special holidays and everything like that. But they don't see the work that we put in behind the scenes. And I think it's going to open up a lot of eyes to anybody who's interested in getting into podcasting.
Yeah, for sure. When you think of like podcasts, you just think of like all the things that go on with the show when you're airing shows, but you don't really know about, for what we do, and we'll talk about finding guests and doing the roundtables and the topics, and what days we want to air this, and just moving it around, and what's the best days that we could try to get downloads, and how we market in this, and all those cool things we're going to talk about today. So yeah, a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, that's always fun to talk about that. I know up on my Patreon, I do post a couple of videos, basically every month, where it's showing a lot of the behind the scenes, not necessarily getting the guest, but all the editing and everything that goes into making this show happen. And I even know up on my TikTok at Mike Bono _comedian, I do every now and again. We go live on TikTok, and it's me recording a show, and it's a lot of fun, getting a lot of viewers. And as I can see, the newest, co-manager there, Pickles, is with you today. For those watching on Patreon, we got Johnny's dog Pickles with us today.
Yeah, she's kind of being rambunctious right now.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, but it's weird thinking back too as well. Starting this show 4 years ago, and where we're at now. It's crazy to think that. It doesn't feel like it's been 4 years for me. You know what I mean? But you brought this idea up to me, and I was like, "Holy crap! It's been 4 years since I've been doing this show."
Yeah, and I think really, we've talked about it, and you talked about on some of the episodes and about ranting, on your way home from work. But I guess really just kind of tell people truly, what inspired you to start the show, but how did you really go from just screaming in your truck on a recording to getting all the equipment and starting the podcast?
Yeah, the show started, and a lot of my comic buddies, they laugh at this every time I tell them. They're like, "Well, what? Yeah, I know a lot of comics have podcasts, but why did you start one?" And it was like, it was basically out of spite. I'm not gonna lie. Like it was March of 2020, right before the world shut down with COVID. And I was talking with a record label out of Atlanta, and I was about to sign a contract. The dream was coming true of becoming a full-time professional stand-up comedian. And then the world shut down. And like less than a week before, I was about to get on a plane and fly to Atlanta and sign the paperwork. And I was talking with them, and it was like, "Hey man, it's 2020. I feel like you can email this stuff over to me. I can sign it, and then I'll email it back." And his exact response, and I still have the picture saved on my phone of his text response. And it was, "Yeah, you don't really have that much of an online presence. So unfortunately, we're going to pass now." So, months of talking to this man and working everything out and all the finer details that go into the behind the scenes of being a comic. And I stewed over it for a little bit and was still going to work at a day job, selling RVs at the time. And I don't know, one day I was on my way home, and something just really irritated me that day at work. And I just made a video on my way home in my truck, and I just kind of ranted for the half-hour drive that I had home. And a buddy of mine reached out to me, and he was like, "Dude, these are hysterical. You just complaining about customers and that people coming in and all the stupid questions you hear as a sales professional." And he goes, "This would be a great podcast." And I thought about it for a little bit. I recorded some more, just audio, not any videos at that point in time. And lo and behold, in December, I finally decided, I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Let's post this and let's see what happens." And the show kind of took off a little bit at the start of it. And lo and behold, 4 years later, it's changed and it's evolved over the years. It went from me ranting on my way home from work and talking about customers and the stupid questions that I would hear on a daily basis. And it was, and some of them, like I have them wrote down, they've become part of my stand-up act too as well, which always gets a big laugh because people can relate to that because they hear it, or they're the ones that ask it and they realize how dumb of a question it actually is. But then I believe you were the first guest that I ever brought onto the show. I think we were just shooting the shit one day via text, and you had mentioned like, hey, why don't you have guests come on from other areas and see if you can kind of grow the reach a little bit. I was like, well, let's start with you. I mean, no better way to start than with somebody that I went to college with, I'm friends with, and then it'd be an easy conversation. And we got to talking after that episode, and that's kind of where you got involved with the show and kind of had an idea, and we kind of rolled with it from there. And that was probably, like 5-6 months into me doing just solo shows with me propping my phone up on the mount in my truck and just kind of ranting about my day on my way home. And that's, if my memory serves me correctly, that's kind of how you got involved with the show.
So I actually remembered the first time I was on was early January of 2021 because we previewed the wild card weekend. You're about probably 6 weeks into the actual podcast itself. But I remember you actually, I think you made a post on social media and you were like, hey, I'm looking for guests. And I was like, I'll be a guest. That's like after we, right. A couple of years after we reconnected when I was living down in Jefferson County. So I was like, yeah, I'll be your guest. And then I think, you had maybe a couple other shows and I was like, hey, that's when I was like, hey man, like, why don't you let me I know some people, let me manage this and let me get some guests on, and then you're like, okay. And then next thing you know, I had like 4 people lined up in the next month for you. I think the 4 first shows were like Phil and Taco Bob and then Aaron and
wasn't Pavlik one of the first ones?
He was a couple months in. I forget who the 4th show was, but I know it was Aaron, Taco Bob, and Phil were the first ones in February, and then from there I was like, well, I know more people. So then we just start reaching out to those people. But you probably remember that we would, for people that don't know, we, of course, pre-record the show, but we were only pre-recording these people like 4 or 5 days in advance of the show, like between Thursday to that Tuesday, and you would air them on Wednesdays. And then as we got a little bit busier into the summer of 21, we started like really pre-recording out by a couple weeks. So yes, everyone, the show is recorded a couple weeks in advance sometimes. And sometimes we've even recorded like 7 or 8 weeks into the future with the ebbs and flows of getting guests and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of times, I mean, I don't want this to sound like a bad thing, but, a lot of times we are at the mercy of the guests. And, when they can have some free time to sit and record with me for an hour. And, there's times where it's like, all right, well, I have this show coming up and there's something pressing here that I kind of need to get out, and I want to get out for the guests to help them promote that. And all right, well, now we're running into a holiday. I have a holiday show I want to put out, and then then you just kind of, it's like 3-4 weeks later, and it's like, oh, I still have this show that I gotta air, and then you can finally get the show on. But yeah, I'll say it was hectic in the beginning when we were recording 3-4 days before the show actually aired, trying to get everything edited and cut down to about a half hour, 45 minutes at the time, and really making the show work and making sure the flow was good, because I'll tell you, I was all over the place those first couple of recordings. Like, I feel like it was just all kind of jumbled together, and just kind of like the way my mind worked and asking the questions. And there was like, it didn't seem like there was a lot of flow like there is now. Like we really take the time now, behind the scenes and really work out the questions and, okay, how is this going to work? This sounds like this, we should ask this before this question. We should do this. And we really break down an outline instead of just anywhere from like 8 to 10 questions that we want to ask the guest. And I think it shows throughout the shows that, people are listening to. But my favorite thing that we started doing, what were we at the end of year one or beginning of year two when we started doing the roundtables?
Yeah, I think those started, I want to say more in year two. But going back to what you're saying, like, so for people that don't know, a lot of the guests in like the first season and most of the second season, those are all people Mike and I knew, like personally knew.
Yeah.
And really it was just the first couple of months, it was more like, hey, Bono, like this is this person, this is their background. And then, you would just go with it and just talk to them kind of about whatever. But yes, as the shows went on, for people that don't know, now it's like, okay, hey, like, let's talk about where they're from, where they went to school, how long they've been in this career, and we've really kind of learned that as we went along. Because the one thing I would say, and, we've always talked about this, it's not just having us on talking about these guests, it's also the guests promoting themselves and talking about where they've come from. It's one thing we've really prided ourselves on here is having multiple guests who are very diverse in multiple fields from all over the world. I remember we kind of said this saying at the beginning was like, let me help you, help me, help you.
Yeah.
And, for people that don't know what that means, it's, let me help you, get yourself out there. But at the same time, you're helping us get our name out there as well. So, I think that's just stuff we all really went through with trial and error and we learned and, we got into a really good structure. But yeah, the roundtables really came, I want to say probably more towards season 2's ending, because that's when we started to get a little bit tight on guests and having to expand our horizon.
We did get tight on guests there after the first year because, a lot of people, you don't think about how many people you actually know, whether that be, friends or even acquaintances that you met along the way. But there's 52 weeks in a year. And we're trying to find 52 people to be on the show. And it was probably coming up near the end of year 2. You're probably right. It was probably season 2 when we were like, all right, we're kind of out of people we know.
Yeah, because the other problem was it wasn't a problem. It was a good thing for us, but we were airing at the end of season 2. We were airing holiday episodes on top of our regular episodes. And in year 3, we did almost all holiday episodes on top of our regular episodes. Not only do you have 52 weeks a year, you say you add in 6 or 12 between 6 and 12 holidays. So I'm like 64 shows. So you really think about it, we're on 4 years, you're over where we're at 200 and
we're at like almost
240 or something.
Yeah.
Think about that. And there's only a couple solo shows in there from the beginning. The rest are people or roundtables. So, you start to kind of run out of knowing people. I mean, that's a lot of people for 2 people, but it's been worth it. It's been fun. And that's why we've really incorporated the roundtables as well, though, to get some just different fun other shows on there. And, I think for the most part, people enjoy the roundtables that we do.
Yeah, I enjoy the roundtables, and from those roundtables too as well. I mean, we've gotten a lot more guests to come on, or as we call them, the solo shows, with the solo guests and not the roundtables. But from other guests being like, "Hey, I know this person. They probably want to be on. Let me reach out to them, and then I'll get you guys in contact with them." And that's definitely helped getting a bunch of people together, and it really helps grow. But yeah, we always started with the help me help you. You know what I mean? Like I love helping anybody in any way I can. That's kind of where this show has evolved to. It's not just me, sitting behind a microphone and complaining about my day anymore. It's me trying to help as many people as possible. The show's getting a, pretty decent reach for two guys who just didn't know jack squat about podcasting when we first started. And when I first started, and just kind of diving headfirst into it. But
yeah, and I think too, like, and this isn't trying to toot our own horn or anything like that, but if you look at the people that have been on, the people that have wanted to be involved with like sponsors and roundtables and, co-hosts and all that stuff, people just, I think they enjoy being on because we keep it fun. We keep it lighthearted, but we do have our serious moments and our shows and things like that. But I think people just enjoy that because, this isn't a political podcast. This isn't anything we try to make serious. We love everybody that comes on here from every background and all that. And I think that's just something that makes people a lot more willing to come back on because it's a comfortable show. We really try to cater to everybody and anybody on that. So yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of trial and error, but I think we've had a lot of good trials and a few errors looking back at it. So, some things you live and learn with, but
yeah, we've definitely had more good than I'd say
absolutely.
errors on this one for sure.
Yeah.
One thing,
go ahead.
I was say one thing that has become a big hit, and we kind of didn't know it, and we just kind of, like you said, we do talk about some serious topics on the show, but when we have just that solo guest, we have the fun way that we end the show now, and the fast Fiddy Five, and the 5 random fun, silly questions that we ask the guests, and these are all for everyone out there. These are all Fiddy. These he sends them to me like the day we record, and he's been asking these questions to people by himself since I've known him in college. And this is, it just, the way your mind works in those random questions. And they get a laugh every time with every guest. Kind of, you could see them chuckle. So I'm reading the questions. And it's just a fun, lighthearted way that we have found to end the show. But one thing I think everybody wants to know is, so Fiddy, how do you come up with these questions?
Honestly, a lot of them are just like, I'll just think about like driving in my car to work or I'm at home and I'm like, man, how bad would it hurt to like get hit in the face with that pillow right there? Or like, if I ran outside and tried to like run into that bush, would that hurt? Or man, this pen's out of ink. I'd rather write with a pencil. It's just like random things like that I think about, or like, is Pepsi or Coke better? It's just things that pop into my mind. And I'm glad we started that because like when we started that in the summer of 21, I want to say like maybe it was right around the time, like, I don't know, Mr. Askew was on for the first time, or like Ricky Stanzi, like one of those guys was on. And then we started that. And I think it just has been a lot of fun since, but yeah, I really just come up with them like at random, just around the house or driving to work or, something like that. But sometimes they're a little bit more, I would say, critical thinking involved. And some of them, you just kind of let the answers fly, right away when you hear it. So just kind of depends, I guess, on how I'm feeling for today when I make them for the, for the guest, and sometimes if I don't really know the guest really well, I try to take it a little bit easier because then I want them to be like, who is this Fiddy guy that's like making these questions and why would a kangaroo fight 12 giraffes? Like, or just something like they think I'm like crazy, or like, I saw something like, hey, would you rather like have it be day or night? Just like simple things like that. So I try to not intimidate the people that really don't know me too well with those questions.
I'll say it was, a recent recording with Lucas, and she listened to a couple of shows, so she was already like mentally preparing herself for the Fast Five. And after we were done, she was just like, I was really expecting a lot of like the animal questions, like the kangaroo fighting like 6 cats or like stuff like that. And she's like, I feel like he took it easy on me. She's like, I'm going to have to come back on later on and let him just really go for it. Like, so I think people are looking more forward to like those off the wall, really crazy questions.
Yeah, I think like she was looking forward to that. I know when you and Joe recorded with Coach Garvey, he even said like I was expecting harder questions than that, and
Yeah.
so like people do want them. I think people like them. I think it's like what Tim Weaver said, Coach Weaver, when he was on. Like those are things like 21-year-olds and 22-year-olds like argue about at football practice, and they're at Brown University, like one of the highest
Right.
academic schools in the country, and they're talking about like animals fighting and getting locked in cages with like animals and fighting WWF wrestlers and all that crazy stuff that kids talk about that I talked about in college, and I just continued it almost 20 years later. So here we are at the Fast Fiddy Five now.
I think I really got the idea because you used to post those questions on like your Instagram story, just or something like that.
I did. I used to do that, especially when I was like really bored during COVID. I'd be like, "Is East or West better?" And people would just vote. I'm like, if people don't vote on your poll, do they think you're better? Do they think they're better than you? It's just like I would just post
just
nonsense like that for questions.
And yeah, I remember seeing those, and you were a part of the show, and I was just like, you know what? Let's try this on the show, like see what people actually think when they're not just kind of bored scrolling through Instagram and they see, Johnny Fiddy Falconi's story. It's like, oh well, it's funny, but I'm not going to answer the poll because I'm kind of like that. I'll see it and I'll answer it in my head, but I won't actually answer it on social media. I don't know why, but it's fun to me now. Like if I see somebody posting something like that, it's like, well, now I have to answer it. I've been making people for damn near 3 years now on the show answer questions. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's something I we definitely are going to be continuing doing. So don't think like this is the end of that segment yet, just because. I call it roundtable season. It seems like as we get closer to the holidays, we seem to have more and more roundtables on rather than the individual guests, which I'm for. I mean, I love bringing a group of people together and, just bouncing ideas or, their different opinions off of each other. And it really becomes more, I don't want to say of a debate show, but it becomes more of a debate between if we're talking like the shows we got coming up when we're going to be, previewing college football championship, and we're going to be talking about the playoff and then the Super Bowl show. Those ones, you get sports guys together and it's just going to be nonsense when with everyone's opinions on everything.
Yeah, and the other ones for people that like don't know, like we've really added in new ones this year, and we highly encourage you to check them out. Like we added all things movies, right?
Yeah.
Where we never really thought about that. We're like, well, people love movies. Let's like get a bunch of people and talk about movies. And we had one about vacations, and actually one of the guests, Nicole, was recording from the airport before she got on an airplane to go on vacation. We've had on things about like small business roundtables and retired college athletes, our story, talking about towns like Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Willoughby, why those towns are great, all things about that. So not only doing the sports shows, previewing the World Series and, baseball season, we've always done, and basketball and all that, but we're doing a lot of other things to not only promote these other towns, but also have a little bit of fun too about like vacations and movies. I think people can relate to a lot of that stuff. And I think when we're previewing or talking about, or however you want to word it, these different areas like Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Willoughby, and we did a Youngstown one, for people that haven't been to those towns that maybe are outside of that listening or viewing area, it makes them excited to maybe want to go to those places and check them out, right? Because people may know Cleveland and Pittsburgh, but they've never been there. Not everybody may know Youngstown or Willoughby, but we've done shows promoting them too. So, I think we do a lot of lighthearted ones too. I'm really excited about, and everybody, it's probably going to come out in January, so you have a little bit of time to wait for it. But the All Things About No Things show, and that'll be recorded here in December, and it'll literally be a show. I already have the topics about 12 or 13 things that are very random. We talk about all things, but no things in particular. So It'll be a good time. I'm sure everybody will love that. It's going to be like an extended version of the Fast Fiddy Five. So we'll have a little bit of fun when we do that. So yeah, so we try to have some fun on those roundtables.
Definitely looking forward to recording that show. Like, I can't wait to record that show. And when you brought that idea up to me, it was just like it instantly brought me back to the show Seinfeld. It's a show about nothing. That whole
That's
episode.
basically what that podcast is going to be, a show about nothing.
That episode is going to be basically the Seinfeld show, because it's a show about nothing but everything at the same time. It's I can't wait. I don't want to give too much away now, because I really want it to be a surprise when people actually get to listen to that in January. But a lot more with getting back to the behind the scenes stuff. Not only has the show grown with how we're breaking down the show, how we're preparing for the show, the equipment that I use now is evolving. I'm actually even recording on a new microphone with a new mic stand. Never used to have a microphone at the start of the show. It was literally either just my phone's microphone that it has in it, or when I finally broke down and bought a new laptop, the laptop microphone that it had in it. And then, the show kept growing and growing. And I was like, you know what? I think I need to break down and get a new microphone, and get a microphone actually, and start recording with a microphone instead of just whatever's coming on my phone or on my computer. And, people don't see that side of it, really. I don't think, is that, there's a lot of research, not only for the shows that you're doing, depending on who you're doing a show for, but there's 1,000 different microphones out there. There's 1,000 different mic stands out there, switchboards to help with the audio and everything like that. There's so much that goes into it. And it helped out a little bit, Bethany College, being a communications major and working for the radio station there when I was there, and working for the TV station. Like, I had a little bit of an idea just from that, but just getting the mic and then setting it up, and finding that sweet spot to where everything, it took me probably, to actually start using the microphone on episodes. I'd probably say a good 3 months to get everything leveled out, and to where I didn't sound like a robot, or it wasn't like squeaking when I was talking into it, and the levels were right when guests were coming on, because that was a whole nother thing, because started in COVID, so everything was done via Zoom, and the show's still done via Zoom right now too as well. So that's another thing, getting on the computer and dealing with the technology issues. I think with guests, losing internet connection, and now I'm losing a guest, and now filling that time where it's like, all right, let them get their stuff back together and get it back on, and they'll be back in a minute or two. But it's a lot of like trial and error, and it's a lot of fun to figure it out. I'm on my second microphone that I've used. My wife actually bought me one a couple of years ago for Christmas to help with the show. And another thing with other shows, for everyone out there who hears her in the background when we're asking questions, and especially in the Fast Fiddy Five, she loves answering those questions in the background. We're actually going to be having her on the show. We don't have a date for it yet. It's probably going to be more towards January as well. But everyone's going to get to meet Mrs. Bono, and her wonderful personality and everything like that too as well. So she won't just be in the background. It's a little bit more work with her coming on as a guest, because one, she hates the sound of her own voice, so that's always fun. That's my cats are running around like crazy. But yeah, so it's a lot of fun, and you're going to get to meet her too as well. So I think that'll be a very interesting show. and just our dynamic is people don't see, they hear her in the background and they hear our interactions at a very brief, minute level with just the few interactions that we have. But now we're going to have a whole show about it. And I think it's going to be eye-opening to a lot of people. And a lot of people are going to see why I don't need to write material for my comedy career. So that's also another thing that people are going to get a behind-the-scenes thing, too. The nice thing that has come about with the technology, and especially when we're breaking down and making the outline for the questions, is you can send them to me and then I can put them in my notes on my phone and I have it to where it goes to my computer. So I don't have to be sitting here reading off my phone trying to remember the questions and everything. I can have everything all in one spot, which it's come a long way from just, hey, Bono, here's so-and-so, here's what they do. Go ahead and have a good show, to now breaking it down. And yeah, the equipment, it's just something I don't think people think about with podcasting at all.
No, you're right on that. And like, if you think about it, right, anyone can really zoom in from a phone or a computer. Like that's easy. But it's, is holding their internet, right? Because the show being so, global. I mean, we've had people from other countries on and all over time zones and stuff like that. So we have no choice but to be on Zoom for everybody that, doesn't know that. So because we have people from Iceland and Turkey, we've had people from Finland on, and then all across the country. So, it's their internet as well you have to worry about. And there has been times when people have dropped or it's been really choppy and things like that. And then, the behind the scenes about saving it to Zoom, and then you have to edit it with like GarageBand. I know you use that, and the microphones, and is your mouth too close to the microphone? Is it far away? What's the lighting like? Things like that. And also, I think like people don't realize that we didn't also always have an intro. You just went into the show at the beginning, and then when we had Speedo Sheldon on as a guest, Speedo was gracious enough to make the intro. So shout out Speedo on that. So the Ride Home Rants intro was done by him, as a favor of being on the show. So it's come a long way with the intro and the technology and the notes. And another thing people probably don't realize is as the shows went on here, and we've had more guests, or even the round tables, and we come up with the topics and send those in. But like for the people that are on now that we don't know, like that Mike and I personally don't know, we have to do research on those people. So if somebody's like, hey, I got such and such, they're interested in being on, or hey, I recommend like these 4 people, and I'm like, cool. Now I need to go Google these people and ask these people about themselves because I need material for the show to send over to Mike. So for like people that don't really know, most of the time it's, unless Mike has a guest now, it's usually me just coming up with the most of the topics, and then the Fast Five sending over to Bono, who then does, the recording and then all the editing of the show. And then we figure out what day we're going to post it, if not Wednesday. So that's kind of how, we do things too. I do more of the reach out and the topics is what a manager should do. And then Mike, being the owner and the host, really owns it and hosts it and does all the behind the scenes things. So yeah, it's really come a long way to technology and the setup. That's for sure.
Yeah. The editing too, as well. GarageBand has been my go-to for editing. And, it's been a ride figuring out, like you said, never had an intro. And then we had Speedo on, and, he was like, oh, well, I could write you guys an intro. It's like, that would be awesome. Because now it's literally just me just starting into the show, and there was no build up to it. And, now, we have a lot of things that are already pre-recorded. Like this isn't something that I, edit into each episode every every week, which at the beginning, that's what I was having to do. I was having to take the audio clip that he sent me, put it before the recording, and then have the recording right after it so that everything lined up and that it flowed with the show. And now, a lot of people, have the hosting site, Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout, has a lot of features that help out with stuff like that. Like I just saved now the audio file of the music and the intro to the show, and it automatically adds it in at the perfect time whenever the show starts, and it blends it in nicely. So it's cut out a lot of the editing work on that aspect. So it's gotten a lot easier. And I know we've thought about it for a while. They're getting away from Buzzsprout. I'm not sure why we thought that, but went right back to it because it's probably the best hosting site that I've tried out. And shout out to them for allowing us to keep hosting our show and allowing it to go to Apple and Google and Spotify and iHeartRadio. And it's just so many. Anywhere you get a podcast now, you could find us now. Which at the start it was just Apple and Spotify were the only two where you could hear the show, and now it's heard on every platform, and it's a lot of things like that having a host site makes life a little easier for podcasters. Mainly the distribution to all the other platforms and the intros and the post rolls where we have sponsorship reads in there now. That's another thing. We're going to talk about the sponsors here a little later in the show. But first, we're on almost up to 250 episodes, Fiddy. So did you have any two guests that you thought were like the biggest guests that we've had on?
Man, we've had so many good guests. But I would probably say if we had to go with the name only, I would say yes. That would have been probably Kelly Pavlik, former WBO, WBC, ring and lineal middleweight champion of the world, right out of Youngstown. He boxed in the 2000s. People pretty much from all over Ohio and Pennsylvania. New Jersey, he fought a lot. Like we talked about this on the boxing show in Atlantic City for like at Donald Trump's casinos and like hotels there. And it's in the Atlantic City Boardwalk Hall of Fame. So Kelly Pavlik, probably name-wise. And then honestly, probably Hal Mumme, legendary college football coach, especially during his time at Kentucky. Was great. Shout out Ernest Wilson for hooking us up with the legend Hal Mumme and having him on half a dozen times, and probably should check in with Hal and see how things are going. It'd be probably the two biggest people I'd probably say were those two. We've had a lot of good names. We've had guys in the NFL and, major college football players and coaches and all these wonderful people, other podcasters, writers, and everything. But probably name-wise, those are probably the biggest two names. Would you agree on that?
I would agree, and it's a tough one for me because there's really three that come to mind. It's those two, and then Ricky Stanzi. Would be, I say, a close third. I don't think I would put him above Hal or Kelly Pavlik. Kelly Pavlik's definitely up there. Your middleweight boxing champion through the 2000s in four different divisions or
four different
champions. Yeah. That's a tough thing to do. And just, being from, Youngstown, Ohio, that's another thing why we wanted to do these city episodes. We have people that are from these little smaller towns that, people I don't think that because they see him fighting in Atlantic City and they just kind of probably assume, he's from Atlantic City. He's fighting there a lot. So him and definitely Hal Mumme and his work that he's done with the spring league football now too as well. And going back to his Kentucky days, yeah, those would definitely be my top two, just names alone, if we're going off of that. But before we get to the sponsors, I want to hear your top 10 episodes that you think out of the 250 that we've done. Do you have a top 10? Doesn't have to be names. It could just be your top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting, right? And I know we were kind of thinking about this, and there's been so many episodes and roundtables and individuals, and the thing with like people know that have listened to the show and been loyal listeners is, I do sometimes co-host with you. I've done more hosting now over the past like a little bit over a year, and then I've also been on as a guest, and then also I just listen. I just get the guest. And I did this for my original 1 year anniversary show. I did a top 10, but yeah, I think I got a top 10, and looking back and reflecting on 4 years of this, I think it's pretty interesting. So I'd say probably so number 10, I would say, and I would encourage everybody to listen to all the episodes, but it's probably especially listen to these top 10, probably listen to the college football roundtable that we had last year for the national championship semifinals. I mean, you got guys on there like Hal Mumme, Jonas Jackson. You had on Dave Bolson. So you had on guys that were involved with major college football and major universities, right? Not just in coaching, but like in fundraising and the money behind it. So I think that was a great one. Looking back, I mean, reconnecting with him and getting him on, and he's been probably been on the most roundtables is, Mr. Askew. So having him back on, that's like, I think the first show I co-hosted. Then I'd say Ricky Stanzi, number 8, former NFL quarterback, living up here in Lake County right now, suburbs of Cleveland. 7, Hal Mumme, probably right there. Again, shout out Ernest Wilson for hooking us up. Number 6 is probably the Vacation Show. I think the Vacation Show is really, really great. I think that's a lot of fun for people. 5, definitely would say Kelly Pavlik, who we just talked about. 4, because he was my number 1 on my individual show, anniversary show, but just because he talked about the economy and all things behind it. Dave Wiley was super great. Talking about the economy, during that time during the COVID crisis and the pandemic, and how we rebounded with, a curve that was K-shaped more than like a bell curve or anything. Probably number 3, probably the All Things Cleveland show, which was great with like Jordan and Wendy and Tony and Steven and myself. And we did predict the Browns were leaving to go to Brook Park. And we said that in the summer, and they definitely did it. So you heard it first on the Ride Home Rants podcast.
Yep.
Probably number 2, the All Things Willoughby show. That was so much fun having all those people on and all the banner back and forth on that. And then probably number 1, even though my audio came out kind of bad on it, we still don't know why, but the Retired College Athlete podcast, where we talked about things that are real and raw with college sports. Myself and Mr. was on there, and like Lauren, and I know we had a couple other people, Dan. I know that was a real and raw show for people, and I think that was something that a lot of people can relate to. So I think it was probably my top 10 there, Mike, for sure.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, my top 10 for the show in the 4 years, and I'm a little bit more biased, because it's, for lack of a better term, my show and everything like that. But the I'd have to say 10. I'm right there with you with the roundtables for the college playoffs last year and the national championship. That comes in number 10 for me. Number 8 or number 9, I have it was I had Hal there at number 9. For me, just getting to talk to a legendary coach like that, that was huge, and loved it. And I love having him on. Every time we can get him on a round table. Number 8 for me was the Halloween roundtable that we did this past year. I love the banter with those guys back and forth with, who's the better movie killer and everything like that. That was it was a lot of fun to do that one. And I'm a big Halloween fan. I do love Halloween as a holiday, which is weird because my wife hates it. Number 7 for me, this is going to sound weird, but it's a little bit biased, but it's my first show that I did, the first one I uploaded from my truck, just because it's kind of what got the show rolling. And I put it there, I didn't want to be like, okay, well, it's number 1 because it was the first show that I ever did and I ever uploaded. And I put it ahead of those guys for that reason, because it was the first show. But I put it down there too as well because there's so many more guests that came on. Ricky Stanzi comes in at 6 for me. Just getting to talk to somebody who played in the NFL, played quarterback in the NFL. A huge football fan, so that helped. 5 is Kelly Pavlik, getting to talk to, boxing champion. Mr. comes in at 4 for me. And it's mainly because, we just miss each other at Bethany College, when he was there and coaching and when I was there. So we had just we just missed each other with getting to know each other there, but just getting to talk to him. And he's been a big supporter of the show. He'll text me out of the blue. Hey, Mike, just listened to that episode. It was great. And then he bounces joke ideas off me that he comes up with himself for comedy too as well. So I got Mr. at number 4, and my wife absolutely loves it when we have him on the show. She thinks he's hysterical. She has said he has become her favorite guest of the show. So we got him at number 4. Number 3, this is where it gets tough for me, is my top 3. I'd have to say the Vacation Show comes in at number 3 for me. Getting to hear people's, travel plans, and the fact that Nicole was at an airport while we were recording that show, getting ready to go on a vacation. She wasn't like traveling for work. She was literally leaving for a vacation as we were recording the Vacation Show. The Pittsburgh Show comes in at number 2 for me. I grew up an hour outside of Pittsburgh, in West Virginia. I visited Pittsburgh a lot. I actually wish I would have been able to record that show. My schedule did not let me host that show. But, getting to hear a little bit more about a town that I grew up near and still learning stuff about that. And I love all things Pittsburgh. So I love that show. And my number 1 show, God, this is tough. My number 1 show for me, it's really a toss up between the town shows, with Youngstown, the Youngstown show, and the Cleveland show. It's really kind of a tie at number 1 for me, mainly because I started doing comedy and really wanting to make it a career in Youngstown. I started doing shows in Youngstown, and that was kind of a buddy of mine that got me into comedy. He called it my first away game, to use a sports reference, when I finally went out of my hometown to do comedy, and I absolutely crushed it there. My first time there, and I've done a ton of shows in Cleveland too as well. So those two, and, getting to know more about them in more places that, I can now reach out to and maybe try to get more shows there and try to bring more entertainment to those towns. That for the past 12 years, I've done probably over 100 shows in each city. So yeah, that one, I can't decide between which one it is. So I gotta go with a tie at number one between Youngstown and Cleveland.
Yeah, and I think it's all going to be too what people enjoy, right? And that's something great about our shows. We have something for everybody, whether it's the roundtables and talking about the shows. We did another roundtable was on restaurants and patios.
Yeah.
We've had on animals, and we've had all types of stuff, right? And we've had on teachers and fitness warriors and coaches, and everyone's going to have whatever their preference is on shows. So just because you and I named 20 shows, and they're really not even 20 because we had some overlap there. Other people may find different ones. So just go through the show and see what you think. There's a lot of descriptions in there, and that's something else. I think it's been great too, Mike, is that when you got the AI wrapped up with the show, the making the actual breakdown of the show, so we didn't have to keep typing it out, was pretty great too. So encourage all the guests to go check out the shows from the early stages to now. I mean, they're a lot of fun to check out.
Yeah, that goes back to the technology piece that we talked about earlier, with the AI kind of helping me out with the descriptions of the show and really filling it in for me. And it puts great descriptions, and it really highlights everything about the show a lot better than me sitting here typing it out, which seemed to be the longest process at the beginning. Was trying to type out those descriptions and make sure I didn't miss something from the show that was important to the guests, or about their background or something like that. So yeah, and it's kind of the world we live in, where kind of like AI is kind of like taking over everything when it comes to technology and that. And I fought it at first. I'm so glad I decided not to, because it's great, and it definitely puts a nice light on the not only the show itself, but the guest itself, and now the sponsors that we've been bringing on to the show. And we have a lot of help with Buzzsprout there. They have people that reach out that want to join the show. You hear those at the middle of every episode where we can land a sponsor. And usually it's another show, another podcast, which I'm for, helping other podcasters out and getting their show out there on a different platform like ours. Maybe it's not something that is comedy related or sports related, which I love putting those ones on there for people, because it gives them another chance to listen to somebody else's show, or a different type of show that maybe they're not used to. But I'm actually wearing the first sponsor hat that came onto the show in Reaper Apparel. I've found a lot of the sponsors mainly by reaching out to companies, but a lot of them have, their affiliate programs that a lot of people don't know about. That it's, I'm basically, the brand ambassador for these companies, and Reaper Apparel was the first one to accept the offer, and they've been with the show for 2.5 seasons now, I think, is when they really came on, through almost 3 seasons. I think they came on at the beginning to middle of season 2. And, they've been a great supporter of the show. They've sent me a lot of swag. I'll tell you that. So, I have a lot of Reaper Apparel gear that, I wear around town. And, a lot of people don't see this side of it too, as well, is that not every sponsor is going to be a paid sponsorship. We've had a lot of people. Lando is one of them with his company, Sweet Hand Sports. He sent me golf glove. He sent both of us a hat, and we keep them in there. And we do have an agreement where we're trading other things back and forth for the read that we have playing at the beginning of every show. Orlando, and just things like that, I think are more, I don't want to say beneficial, because obviously I'm not going to turn down money if somebody offers me money for a sponsorship, but at the same time, if I can help somebody by rocking their gear, whether that be when I go out golfing with Lando's golf club, or when I'm on stage, I try to find out and pick a new sponsor's hat, and because I always wear a hat when I'm on stage, and I try to wear that hat whenever I'm on stage. I'm having a real hard time because this is near the holiday season, so I do gear back my shows and any shows that I will have this time of year, comedy shows, not podcasting shows, but because I do have a son and a wife, so I try to spend as much time with them during the holidays as I can. And I actually am starting the bookings for 2025. I'll get this out here now. I do have a show lined up on January the 18th in Cambridge, Ohio, at the Downtown Arena. So anybody that's going to be in that area, show is from 8 to 10. I'm with a former guest of the show, Destin Richardson. So, it's not only writing jokes for me now, it's trying to figure out which sponsor I'm going to wear to these shows. Because I don't just promote them when it's on the show. I try to get them out any way that I can. Especially like Tactical Brotherhood is another one that really helps. And, part of every proceed goes to helping veterans. That's a big cause for me. I try to align myself with causes that I can get behind. Deemed Fit, the newest sponsor to the show. Part of every proceed going to helping, first responders, especially the ones that work during COVID, with their mental and physical health. So, it's causes like that. But finding sponsors is not as easy. And I know we have a decent amount of sponsors that get read on the beginning and the end of the show. So for those of you that don't wait till the end, we do have some more great sponsors. So make sure you hang out till after the show to hear about them and all their great causes and everything like that. But we've done a lot with like former guest Wendy, helping her realty company. She sent both of us hats and stuff like that. So there's a lot of trading for promo reads with materials, and that's I think it's more beneficial for me. Like, do you have any thoughts on that with what we've had with the sponsors on the show?
Yeah, and I think for us, we are open to trades, right? We will rock. If you want to send us your apparel, we will wear it. I just wore the hat Wendy gave us a couple years ago, today. So like, for example, when she sent us those hats or gave one to me, and I think I mailed it to you, we did a free month of promos for her. When Nick Tomba was on, he owns Coach's Dry Rub business. He, I think, sent us a couple free dry rubs, and we did a month, and then he sponsored a month, and he sent I think that was like maybe May of 22. Yeah, I believe it was May of 22. He sent all those guests a free sample of his dry rub. So we've done things like that. I know Dana, when she was on talking about her candle business, I know she did a paid promotion, but I know with like Lando sent us stuff. So we're really open to all that with people. If we can wear your stuff, I wear my hat from Lando and I wear my hat from Wendy, and use Nick's Dry Rub from, again, Coach's Dry Rub here in Lake County. For anybody who wants to check that out, that's Nick Tomba. He's defensive coordinator and teacher at Willoughby South Middle and High School. So we're open to that stuff. The stuff Mike's got from Reaper Apparel and Deemed Fit. So, we're definitely open to do all that. With the sponsorships, I think people here before and after the show are different than what Mike was talking about, that what we have in the middle of the show. Those are sponsorships from Buzzsprout that, we approve or they approve. And that is a small monetary gain that we get, so many cents per the download that we have when those are on. So some of them may only be like 12 cents. Other ones, I think we maybe made like $10 off of that one. But, they are different. But we try to, again, let me help you, help me help you with the sponsors. So I know we're in the works with a couple other ones right now, and we're going to continue with some stuff. So, for anybody is interested in collaborating, we are down to rock your apparel. Mike and I live in in different areas, but we're close to big cities, so we're happy to wear your stuff out, whether it's a hat or a shirt or whatever you want to send. So we are always good with that. So I think the sponsors have been great. They've just been really awesome to work with.
Yeah. I love talking with the sponsors. And again, I do this out on my Patreon page. Is I actually have a whole show where it's, I'm talking about the sponsors the whole time. And, it's getting a lot of good feedback. And so I'm hoping that, a lot of these sponsors are small businesses, that, helping them out too as well. But I am down for pretty much anything. Buddy's Beard Care, the other sponsor here, that, he sends me a complimentary beard balm every month, and we continue to do his read. So yeah, it's just, and the connections that I think that we've made, just with knowing these sponsors, and, glad to have them on the show. Glad to have them be a part of it. But yeah, for anybody out there, you got a small business, a company, anything like that, reach out to us. There's a link in every episode now where you can send us a text directly, and it'll come right to me, and we can break everything down, and we can talk back and forth about, sponsorships for the show, and, helping each other grow, help me, help you, help me. And, it's a lot of fun, but it goes back to, again, to, I think, people not knowing the behind the scenes, and, reaching out to these sponsors and trying to make the good sales pitch to get them to come on board. And, but it's been a lot of fun finding them. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a wild ride with you on the show, Fiddy, since you came on, and helping the show grow to where it is. I haven't looked lately. I know you're the numbers guru out there, with where the show is at. I think the last I looked, you talked about it. We've had guests from other countries, and we were actually heard in, I think it was like 20 different countries the last time I looked. I could be way off on that. I know you're the numbers guy.
I will tell you what they are, and actually 1 second, we'll let everybody know as we record this where the numbers officially stand. But I can tell everybody that we did get 232 downloads of the show today, which was really great, right, for us. So right now, Ride Home Rants is heard in, dun, 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 drum roll as all the stats load. We are heard in 60 countries or territories across the world, with the United States coming in at 1, Germany 2, Brazil 3, Canada 4, Singapore 5, United Kingdom 6, Norway 7, Ireland 8, Australia 9, and a tie at 10 with Finland and Turkey and India. So that's where we are with the countries, which was great. And we are heard in 1,368 cities worldwide, with Zanesville, Ohio coming in at number 1, Cleveland, Ohio at number 2, Columbus, Ohio at number 3, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at number 4, Youngstown, Ohio at number 5, Menor, Ohio at number 6, Guajara, Morojano at number 7, which is in, I believe, South America towards Brazil.
Yeah.
Ashburn, Virginia at number 8, Wilmington, Delaware at number 9, and then Washington, PA at number 10. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And that's surprising because I haven't looked at those numbers in a while. And that's interesting that Washington, PA kind of came out of nowhere with that, but that's definitely great. So, as far as we stand today, when this episode is, a couple of days pre-recorded, that's kind of where we are with our download numbers.
Yeah, that's, to most people that are, seeing these huge podcasts up there, and, on the charts at number 1, number 2, all the way through number 10, getting tens of thousands of downloads, they probably didn't see the shows at year 4, and they're probably were just as pumped as we are to have a 242 download day. Like that's another thing. It's the little victories that you kind of hang on to in podcasting, and having a 200 download day is a good day.
And as we stand at, with year 4, right now we have total of all of our, say, 250 episodes. We have 14,226 total downloads across. So, we do sometimes list our top 10, which we'll probably list here probably as the new year changes. I like to always post where we're at with that. So stay tuned, for that on our social media. And then, we'll release kind of where they are. But there definitely was some movement with the 232 downloads today.
Yeah, absolutely. Always pumped for that. But we are down near, the end of the episode here. I feel like I could sit here and talk about this all day, but don't want to drone on about ourselves in that. So we're actually going to wrap up this 4-year anniversary of the Ride Home Rants podcast show. Thanks for coming on and talking with it, Fiddy. Been a part of the show. So glad you've been a part of the show and helping it grow and everything like that. But that is actually going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank everybody again for your added support throughout the show, throughout the years, for many years to come. And as always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week.
The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Dubby Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rocket on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.